if anybody else would like to speak. Mr. Robert Kirkbride is here. He's come all the way from New York City. He's an architect at the new school with a special connection to Kirkbride buildings. I want to thank you all for coming. And I also want to thank the Preservation Works for organizing this event. All the people at Traverse City, Fergus Falls, Trans-Allegheny, Danvers, and Buffalo for their demonstration of support in protesting the ongoing disaster you see behind me. You will rarely see a more tangible or egregious example of government waste than the senseless demolition being carried out here. A plan like this could never have been hatched in the light of day. It was all decided behind closed doors by an increasingly insular and self-serving community of so-called public servants. Our Open Public Records Act requests for an accounting of the deliberation process got us nothing but redacted documents. If this demolition plan was really in the public interest, I'm sure they wouldn't have been so shy about accounting for their decision. They didn't even bother to come up with a plausible cover story. Funding gaps? The developers didn't see any funding gaps. They were quite confident that they could take this building, fix it up with their own money, put it to good use, and make their money back. But the state wouldn't talk to them. Their alternative to revitalizing this heirloom with $120 million of private investment was to borrow $50 million for demolition. How's that for a funding gap? A $50 million funding gap in the state budget, a debt. Now this is state property, but it's not just the state doing this. This doesn't happen without the complicity of local officials, including mayors and especially the freeholders. They have all failed to carry out the public will, failed to responsibly manage our public assets, and not one of them who stayed silent on this issue deserves your vote. Now apparently they have also botched the execution of their own plan. And I'm talking about the remediation of lead and asbestos. I'm not an expert in this, but every expert I've talked to tells me that the proper way to remediate asbestos is with negative air pressure. That means you seal up the windows, you seal up the roof so that none of the fibers can get out. Well, that clearly hasn't been done. The building has been wide open throughout. The roof's open, the windows are open. And that's why we're meeting down here. We're going to go closer to the building for our group shot, but I want everybody wearing a dust mask. With regard to the lead paint, the hazardous building survey report for this site states that all painted surfaces are to be treated as lead paint. Clearly this is not being done. Unless the proper way to deal with lead paint is to stuff it into the tunnels and use it as infill where it will doubtless leach into the groundwater. They have some explaining to do on the asbestos remediation and on the lead remediation. I want to give a shout out to Adam and Lynn who couldn't be here today. To everybody who couldn't be here, this is not our jobs. This is something we do as an act of citizenship to hold our public officials accountable. Transparency works in both directions. We have woefully inadequate transparency laws in this state, that's clear. But people have to pay attention, and you've all done a wonderful job of that, and I want to thank you. Any questions?